In 210 BC, a single letter destroyed the first unified empire in human history. Not a declaration of war, not a rebel manifesto. It was a last will, an imperial decree that looked entirely legitimate. The empire's most powerful general read it and did not resist. The emperor's eldest son read it and drew his sword across his own throat. 3 years later, the empire was gone. No one knew the letter was a forgery, and the man who forged it was the same man who had designed every institution the empire ran on. His name was Li Si. Emperor Qin Shi Huang died on the road home from his 5th imperial tour. He died inside a carriage at a place called Shaqiyu in what is now Hebei province. But his death was kept secret. The convoy kept moving. Eunuchs delivered meals to the carriage on schedule and continued issuing orders in the emperor's name. To mask the smell of the decomposing body, they loaded an entire cart of salted fish alongside the imperial carriage. The fate of an empire quietly shifted direction under the stench of rotting fish. Only 3 people were at the emperor's side: the eunuch Zhao Gao, the chancellor Li Si, and the young prince Hu Hai. The man who should have inherited the throne was not there. He was 1,000 miles away on the northern frontier. Fusu, the emperor's eldest son, was the closest thing the empire had to an heir apparent. But his political vision was the opposite of his father's. In his final years, Qin Shi Huang had grown increasingly brutal, building the Great Wall, constructing the Epang Palace, expanding the imperial tomb, piling forced labor and harsh punishments onto a population already stretched to its limit. Fusu opposed all of it. When the emperor ordered the burning of books and the execution of scholars, Fusu openly challenged him. The empire has only just been unified. The people's loyalty is not yet secure. This is not the time for such severity. The emperor was furious. He banished Fusu to the northern border to serve as deputy to General Meng Tian. Meng Tian was the most powerful military commander in the Qin Empire, leading 300,000 troops stationed along the frontier. This meant that if Fusu were to take the throne, the empire's strongest armed force would be standing right beside him. Before he died, Qin Shi Huang left behind a decree. Its content was simple. Fusu was to return to the capital, Shanyang, to preside over the funeral. In the political language of the time, this was equivalent to naming a successor. If that letter had been delivered, the story would have ended there. Fusu would have become emperor. Meng Tian would have served as his chief military advisor. The power structure of the Qin Empire would have remained unchanged. But Zhao Gao intercepted the letter. Zhao Gao was Hu Hai's personal tutor and the palace official in charge of confidential documents. He understood perfectly well that if Fusu took the throne, Meng Tian's faction would control the government and there would be no place left for him. So he decided to gamble. But Zhao Gao could not do it alone. He needed the chancellor, Li Si. Every administrative order in the empire required the chancellor's seal to take effect. Without Li Si's cooperation, no forged decree could possibly be executed. So Zhao Gao went to Li Si and asked him one question. If Fusu becomes emperor, will you still be chancellor? The question struck at Li Si's deepest fear. Li Si's entire life had been a story of climbing from the bottom to the very top of imperial power. He started as a minor clerk in the state of Chu. As a young man, he watched rats in a latrine scramble for scraps, while rats in a grain storehouse fed without fear, and he decided then that he would become a storehouse rat. He traveled to the state of Qin and climbed step by step to the chancellorship. The empire's system of centralized provinces and counties, its unified script, its standardized weights and measures, Li Si was the architect behind all of it. The Qin Empire was, in a very real sense, Li Si's creation. But now, Zhao Gao was telling him that his creation no longer belonged to him. Fusu trusted Meng Tian, not Li Si. When the new emperor took the throne, the first person replaced would be the chancellor. Li Si was silent, for a long time. Then he made his choice. He chose to betray the empire he had built with his own hands. They rewrote the decree. The new version read, Fusu is disloyal and is ordered to take his own life. Meng Tian has failed in his duties and must do the same. Then they sent this forged document north to the frontier garrison. What happened next has puzzled people for 2,000 years. Fusu did not resist. He had 300,000 soldiers at his disposal. He had Meng Tian, one of the most capable commanders in Chinese history, standing right beside him. He had every means to refuse the order, to send envoys back to the capital to verify it, even to raise an army in challenge. Meng Tian urged him to do exactly that. With 300,000 troops behind you, at least send someone to confirm the decree before you act. But Fusu refused. He said only this, "My father has ordered me to die. What is there to verify?" Then he drew his sword and killed himself. This was not stupidity. It was proof of how deeply the Qin system had taken root. The empire had internalized absolute obedience to such a degree that even the emperor's own son could not bring himself to question whether a decree was genuine. The emperor's word was the law itself, and law was not meant to be verified, only obeyed. Fusu's death was not a personal tragedy, it was the logical outcome of the system working exactly as it was designed to work. Hu Hai took the throne and became known as the second emperor of Qin. But the real power belonged to Zhao Gao. Before long, Zhao Gao no longer needed Li Si either. He fabricated charges, manufactured evidence, and had Li Si convicted and sentenced to be cut in half at the waist, one of the most brutal forms of execution in ancient China. On the day of his death, at the execution ground in Shanyang, the man who had personally designed the empire's entire legal apparatus was put to death by the very judicial procedures he had created. It is recorded that just before the sentence was carried out, he turned to his son standing beside him and said, "All I want now is to go back to our old home in Shanghai, take the yellow dog, and go hunting rabbits outside the East Gate. But that will never happen again." A man who had spent his entire life climbing to the pinnacle of power discovered only at the moment of death that the thing he truly wanted had been waiting at the place where he started. With Li Si gone, there was no one left who understood how to run the machinery of the empire. Zhao Gao held absolute power while Hu Hai lost himself in pleasure. Within months, the rebellion of Chen Sheng and Wu Guang erupted. The old aristocracies of the 6 conquered states rose again. Within 3 years, the Qin dynasty was gone. Many people attribute the fall of Qin to its brutality. But brutality was only the surface cause. The deeper problem was that the system Li Si designed for the empire was too perfect, so perfect that all power converged on a single point. In engineering, there is a concept called a single point of failure. When every critical function in a system depends on one node, the moment that node fails, the entire system collapses. The Qin Empire was the earliest political single point of failure in human history. While Qin Shi Huang was alive, that node operated with extraordinary efficiency. But the moment he died, a single forged letter was enough to hijack the entire empire because the system had been built on the assumption that the node would never malfunction. Li Si built a machine that only one person could drive, then handed the wheel to someone who could not drive at all. He thought he was protecting his own position. Instead, he destroyed not just Fusu, not just the dynasty, but everything he had ever built, including himself. The most precisely engineered systems tend to break at their most precisely engineered component, because all of a system's fragility is hidden in the same place as all of its strength.